What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we have some Destiny 2 news and updates to round up. And in the video today we get a sneaky peek at the developer roadmap for Destiny 2, which could suggest an extra unannounced content release after the final shape. So we'll touch on that, plus we have a few new words from Bungie about reprising D1 content, some of which is yet to come this year, and then we'll touch on the recent D2 update, and Bungie clarifies some details about weapon changes, plus there are other fixes to mention, on top of a few other things in this video. So as always guys, I hope you enjoy this one and find it useful, but without further delay, let's get into it. And starting out before we talk about patch note things, Bungie help tweeted that due to an issue we've disabled the Blight Ranger exotic hunter helmet, and basically it was possible to get a massive damage boost from the exotic, but to actually keep the boost active until death via a glitch in the game, and so players were able to put out ridiculous amounts of damage very consistently. So the exotic is disabled until further notice. And up next, yesterday we got a new update with a couple of notable changes, which Bungie have offered some clarity on. So yesterday, hotfix 4005 fixed a problem where Trials of Osiris mementos were not dropping when players claim their first flawless chest of the week. But there are also a series of bug fixes for the Wellspring attack and PsyOps Battlegrounds. And then for mods, the Suppressing Glaive mod now consumes and requires 10% weapon energy when applying suppression with the Glaive melee. And so a general nerf to Suppressing Glaive right there, which definitely won't do Glaives any favors in general. Also for aspects, the Child of the Old Gods is now more likely to reach its intended target, no longer bouncing off its directed path. And so a solid buff right there for Child of the Old Gods, but finally, they say balance tweaks were made to the Firmly Planted perk on fusion rifles, and its effectiveness has been reduced by 50%. But also that Glaives will now reach full charge after landing 4 successful projectile hits. And so a mixed bag of changes right there, but on the subject of Firmly Planted, DMG said we have additional context from the team, and they said we found that on-demand perks granting a large amount of stability or accuracy are too strong on fusion rifles, and we previously touched on Tap the Trigger for this, but are now doing the same to Firmly Planted. This should make it slightly more difficult to secure one-burst kills from larger ranges, and the team is continuing to monitor feedback and data on all special weaponry in the Crucible. And so a bit of a justification for that adjustment there. As always, there'll be mixed feelings on these kind of changes, but hopefully Bungie will continue to give us updates and changes, including for things like Glaives, right? As at the moment, a lot of the things working in their favor have been adjusted. So give us your thoughts down below. The other quick content mention for this week though would be the new challenge in the Vow of the Disciple raid, and this is Caretaker Challenge. It's actually a very simple one, I'm only stunning the boss right here, but essentially for runners, in order to complete the challenge, runners can only pick up one symbol at a time. And so you can have as many players go in and pick up symbols as you like, as long as individual runners only pick up one symbol, then deposit it. Although a lot of teams are opting to send 2 runners in, which perhaps slows the encounter down just a little bit, but is a fairly reliable and easy way to get it done. Up next though, we'll mention a few other bits about Destiny, and shared on Twitter by Ben Hansen, Destiny Bulletin showed an image from Bungie's GDC panel this year. And one of the things they showed on the screen was this roadmap, and it shows expansions and seasons, including all of the Witch Queen and Year 5 stuff, plus Lightfall and the Final Shape. And a bunch of those seasons right there are redacted, of course, they're ones that are upcoming in the future. But one of the curious parts is a bigger redacted section, which sits on the roadmap after Final Shape. And unlike the seasons, it's on one of the larger banners. So now folks are wondering, could Bungie be looking at yet another additional expansion in the Destiny 2 timeline? And of course it is possible. However, it's also possible, especially if the cadence and scale of expansions changes after Final Shape, that Bungie could be planning a more medium-sized DLC, something bigger than a season, but smaller than the Witch Queen, for example. And I guess another interesting part is that it's on a unique row, and so it's giving folks something to speculate about, but in terms of a content release isn't something that Bungie have discussed or confirmed whatsoever. So always bear that in mind, but the potential positive is that Bungie are already exploring the possibility of more content beyond the expansion roadmap that they've currently revealed. So give us any thoughts you have about that. And of course, in 2 or 3 years' time, we could be looking at seeing Bungie's future projects. If not a release for a different IP, we're certainly likely to have more information. But at the GDC panel, they also shared a chart showing weekly active users comparing Destiny 2 and Destiny 1. And this is users in the first 30 weeks of the launch of both games, so it only refers to the very beginnings. But the white line on top is Destiny 1, with the orange line underneath being Destiny 2. And so it's obvious, especially after around 9 or 10 weeks, that Destiny 1 was able to hold the audience much better. I believe the second white peak is probably when Dark Below launched. And so it's interesting to see, but as we know, Destiny 2 had a pretty rocky launch. There were issues and concerns in the first few weeks, but especially after the first couple of months. The game began to lose a lot of players, but but things have certainly changed over the course of D2, especially between Forsaken and now. Nonetheless, it's pretty interesting stuff. Moving on though, Game Rant managed to get a few words from Bungie about the possibilities around returning Destiny 1 content in a recent article, and they say that nothing from Destiny is off the table for a D2 comeback according to Bungie. And while Destiny and Destiny 2 are very different titles in terms of gameplay, they share a lot of themes and a long history that Bungie can look back to in order to understand what it should or shouldn't bring back. Fans often theorize that the games are two separate releases, and Bungie wouldn't be bringing any larger content from Destiny back to D2, but they're open to doing just that, especially with the Taken King. And the quote from Bungie is, "I don't think there's something from Taken King that's off the table that we'd say we'll never do that again." Something that we learned from comparing the Taken King and Witch Queen, which have very similar themes, is the concept of legacy, and there are things from Taken King that we'd really loved a lot. So we're glad to have this legacy in history, and we can bring more value to that in Witch Queen and beyond. They also refer to a reprise raid that we're going to be getting. And Bungie say everything achieved with Destiny is not lost to time, and there's always a chance for it to be meaningful again in D2. And he said there's all this work that we've done on Taken King and D1 Vanilla, and we're at a fortunate time now in Destiny where we can reap what has been sown over the course of 7 years. So just a few interesting comments right there, and especially looking at some of the themes that Bungie have tackled, but also shoutbacks to the Taken King and the lore around Witch Queen. Even using bubbles like the Mars space again. Then with reprise raids, definitely, it seems likely that Bungie will ramp up their use of older assets over the next couple of years. So give us any thoughts you may have about that down below. The final thing I wanted to mention in this video though is that Bungie are filing a lawsuit against rogue content claimers. And of course, a couple of weeks back, some people had managed to claim Bungie's content on both content creators' channels, but even the Bungie channels. And according to a Kotaku article, Bungie are taking the matter to court to find out who's responsible for the rogue takedowns, as someone was essentially able to imitate Bungie and the control over their content. The claim also says that Bungie had to devote significant internal resources to addressing the problem and helping its players to restore videos and channels in an effort complicated by the fact that YouTube has a form that allows anyone to claim and represent a copyright holder and issue copyright strikes. So a bit of a complaint right there about YouTube's system and how they do things, which has definitely enabled these issues to occur. And so it's something that Bungie are pursuing on a high level. And I'll link the article down below if you guys want to get more info on that. But for today, that's everything we have to round up in the video. So as always, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this one. And if you have, a rating below really helps us out. As always, give us your thoughts on what we've touched on in the comments section. And if you're new to the channel, be sure to get subscribed so I can keep you posted with more content. But otherwise for today, thanks as always for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys very soon.